Welcome back to episode 3 of Nomifactory. After configuring our dynamos a bit, our battery is charging and it is time to start work with our machines and obtain our goal for today, the blast furnace. Our next goal is to make more steel, because that's what needed for the LV hulls. I tried placing iron and coal into an alloy smelter, but apparently the recipe requires wrought iron, so I place wrought iron and coal into the alloy smelter. The recipe took 8 seconds, which is shorter than the primitive blast furnace, and I got all the ingots in 2 minutes. With the LV hulls I made, we can make a wire mill, but that requires a bunch of motors. All I had to do was file down some iron ingots into rods and then surround them with redstone to make them magnetic. File down even more iron rods, but these will not be magnetized. Next we take some copper foil made earlier and cut them up into fine wires which will be used for motors. We flattened down some tin plates and cut them up into wires before surrounding them with rubber to make tin cables for the 14th time. And then finally assemble them to form the LV electric motor. We then flattened down some more tin plates, cut them up into wires and surround them with rubber to make even more tin cables for the 15th time. This is a very important recipe, so I will be batch crafting it. Finally we place 2 of the cables in an LV hull followed by 4 of the 16 motors at the corners before finally adding electronic circuits to form the LV wire mill. Next up was the LV assembler, which required conveyor modules and robot arms that required pistons. All I had to do was place tin cable and 2 motors and surround them all by rubber sheets, which I already had to form a conveyor module. Flatten down some wrought iron into plates and file up some wrought iron into rods before assembling and form some wrought iron gears. Then assemble the rest of the plates and rods together and add gears, wires and motor to form the LV piston. Then we file up some steel into rods and then add the pistons, more motors and a lot of wires to finally form the LV robot arm. Then we make another 2 machine hulls and finally assemble the robot arms, circuits, conveyor modules, wires and hulls together to form an LV assembler. With the materials we already have, we can also make an LV bending machine that makes plates more efficiently. Next, we sacrifice a few electronic circuits to create programmed circuits which are needed for the assembler and bending machine. Next it is time to make some machine casings for our blast furnace. First we combine iron and nickel in an alloy smelter to create invert. We then file down some and use our newly built metal bender to create plates more efficiently, then assemble the rods to form a frame before finally assembling them all together to form the heat-proof invert machine casing. Next up was the 16 Cupro nickel coils. But there was a problem. We needed tin alloy in a liquid, and the only way to do that was with an extractor. And that needs pumps. And we do not have pumps. All I needed to do was combine some copper and tin in an alloy smelter to form bronze. Then we flatten down the bronze in a bending machine before finally turning them into bronze fluid pipes. Then we file up even more tin rods, saw them down to form tin bolts and combine them together to form tin screws. Then we file up even more tin into rods and then hammer them into rings. Then collect some plates from the bending machine and assemble them all together to form the tin rotor. Next we begin the long grind for a single piece of flint needed for a flint knife. Next we cut up the rubber using the knife into rings and finally assemble some tin cables, the tin rotors, tin screws, rubber rings, fluid pipes and some motors together to form the LV electric pump. After obtaining the pumps, we craft the LV extractor and LV fluid solidifier. Now it is time to make tin alloy. We smelt tin and iron in an alloy smelter and then extract it. But there is a problem. We cannot pick up tin alloy with bare hands. So I crafted the steel drum which allowed me to pick up 64,000 liters of liquids. Now, we can finally assemble Cupro nickel wires, copper foil and tin alloy all together to form Cupro nickel coils. The Cupro nickel coils are actually the worst of all the coils, but that's all we've got. Anyway, we assemble invert casings, 3 furnaces, 3 circuits and 2 wires together to form the electric blast furnace finally. But there is a problem. Blast furnaces are multi-blocks, and you can't supply them with energy directly. Instead you need energy hatches. You also need input and output buses and hatches to carry out recipes. All I needed to do was take some steel and bend it into wires and then take the steel wires and bend it even harder into fine wires, then assemble it together with some pre-made magnetic iron rods to form the low voltage coil, or primitive coil. Then surround our wrench by steel plates to form machine casing and then attach wrought iron and more steel plates and some tin cables to form the LV hull for the 12th time this episode. We then combine tin cable, low voltage oil and LV hulls to form the energy hatches. Next we make even more machine hulls, perform the incredibly complex process of making chests out of wood, and then combining chest and LV hulls in a certain way that produces the input and output hatch, then repeat the process but this time with glass. But we still needed a muffler hatch, which requires tin rotors. Thankfully, now with the fluid modifier and extractor, All I needed to do was take some steel plates and bend them even more into empty shape plates. Then we hammer them in extremely precise areas to form a rotor mold. We place the shape mold in a fluid solidifier and put liquid tin in it, and the tin solidifies in the shape of a rotor. We then assemble them all together to form an LV muffler hatch. But before we can complete our assembly, we must first craft a maintenance hatch, because apparently the creator of GregTech decided that machines need maintenance. The process is easy and only involves placing an LV hull in the assembler to form a maintenance hatch. We also need a crowbar for maintenance, which is crafted out of lapis lazuli and a bunch of other things that clearly isn't needed for a crowbar, but we need it anyway. I bought some lapis ore with hard-earned Nomi coins and smelted it in a furnace to get lapis. Next we surround some steel rods with lapis and hammer and file it at the same time to obtain a crowbar. Now it is our final assembly of the blast furnace. We place down the controller, input and output buffers, energy hatchets, maintenance hatchets, heat-proof casings, cupronickel coils and muffler hatches and carry out maintenance. All there's left to do is to operate it.